us on air, online, if you will. We've got our time for the South Dakota Retailers Association as we talk about We Believe in Business. We've got Executive Director Nathan Sanderson with us. Good morning. Are you coming through? Hey there. I think maybe we might have missed him. Hold on one second here. Let's check this out.
I'm back. Good morning, Steve.
There we go. Hello. Sorry about that. All right, now we've got you guys here. So, okay, we got the Executive Director Nathan Sanderson with us. So, good morning. Thank you for joining us again.
Absolutely. Good morning, Steve.
So also we have you brought with us a special guest that's also online, if you will, Jason Harms, who is the board president of the Retailers Association. Good morning to you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us, I don't know, maybe should we start a little bit about Nathan? Do you want to tell us about maybe the board and kind of how we learned a little bit about the association and how that kind of helps? But what is a purpose of having a board with such the association that you do have?
120 got together in Redfield, and they created this new entity they called the Retail Merchants Association. And so now, over the course of the 29 years, that has morphed into the South Dakota Retailers Association. That association currently has just shy of 4,000 members all around the state. And our organization proper is a 501c6 nonprofit. So we're a nonprofit entity comprised of businesses from all around the state. And just like other nonprofit entities, whether that's your church board or your local hockey association or any of the other nonprofit entities that you're familiar with around the state, we are governed by a board of directors. And so we've got a staff, of which I am one, obviously, but we rely on member business owners like Jason to serve on our board of directors and provide guidance and vision for the association.
So, Jason, when you when you commit to something like this, I mean, that can be a pretty big commitment for one. Plus, you have your own business to run. Tell us maybe a little bit about yourself and the business that that you run, and what gives you the passion to even step up and do something like that.
Okay. I work with my family, and I've got a brother, sister still active with me, and our dad started it. But the Harms Oil Company, we will deliver gas and fuel to retail gas stations usually. We're a wholesaler, and then we'll also have retail stores. We're down on I-90 right now. But we all work together, contrary to probably what you see on TV. We actually get along and enjoy sitting across the table at Thanksgiving. But the Retail Association, I got involved with in 2016. And it's been pretty rewarding, very rewarding. It was fun. When I first started, there was a Main Street fairness issue, and it was collecting state sales tax on internet sales. And at that time, there was a coalition working to fix that issue. They created legislation right here in South Dakota and then brought a lawsuit against Wayfair. That Wayfair would remit the 4% sales tax to South Dakota. They lost in state, and after a couple appeals, the United States Supreme Court agreed to hear it, and they overturned a decision called Quill from the 70s, and so it was just remarkable that the work here in South Dakota would go on to affect our nation. So quite a neat thing to witness and experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's nice that the South Dakota can be on the forefront of a lot of these things. And we touched on the legislation role a little bit too on the last call. And Nathan, you've talked about in the past, that little bit of lobbying and how the organization and the board. Can you touch a little bit on how the board can help influence some of the direction that the association might go into?
Our board is intimately involved in the direction of our organization. As I've spoken about in the past, our organization really does three things. We provide information for businesses of all different types. We've got a print publication. We have digital information that goes out on a regular basis, and even more so during the legislative session. And that's kind of the second thing that we do is advocacy. And this time of year, when the South Dakota legislature is in session, myself and we've got two lobbyists who work with us during the session. We're there every single day, and this year we're tracking 238 of the 570 bills in the session, and so that's a pretty significant portion of our work. And then we also have member services, whether that's credit card processing or music licensing or shipping and that kind of thing. So between information and advocacy and services, that's kind of what we do. And as I mentioned, during this time of year, advocacy is huge. So because we're tracking so many bills, we have to kind of handle that in a pretty organized process. Over the course of years, far predating me, our organization has established a variety of standing legislative positions. At a really high level, we want to keep taxes low, regulations reasonable, and South Dakota a great place to do business. But every week during the legislative session, we have a call with our board of directors to talk through a whole variety of bills and to get direction on how we should approach that. And so our board of directors is keenly involved with the direction that our organization takes. And it's a reputation that we've developed over the course of a number of years, and we believe we're pretty effective in Pierre during the session.
Awesome. And Jason, how long have you been with the board and the organization, the association altogether?
Sure. I started in 2016 and had a couple terms and took a year off, and then wouldn't you know it, they invited me back, and so now I've been there since, and probably got a couple years left. So.
Well, what are some of the things that maybe stick out to you over that time frame that's kept you involved? And there are multiple industries, especially that are different from what you do.
Yeah, South Dakota Retailers Association, on a personal level, I've just enjoyed building relationships across the state. It's been rewarding. I was an 18-year-old who thought I needed to go a long way away for school. I wound up in Iowa, but I came back, and working in South Dakota, I felt like I was at a disadvantage with just knowing people and relationships. So being involved in a statewide organization has been personally rewarding, but the work has been good. I think this association makes a difference. The amount of times we meet is certainly reasonable. We meet 3 times a year in person, and then we have, little calls as needed to take care of business in an efficient manner. So I think they're pretty considerate and efficient with the form and the frequency of meetings, and I think it makes a difference, as mentioned.
Absolutely. So being a small business owner, let's say they're watching, listening, and they're not yet involved in the South Dakota Retailers Association, being 4,000 members strong, partner family. As the president, and you've been with it for a while, Jason, what's maybe one of the number one reasons that you would encourage a business owner to join the association?
There's a lot of small businesses out there, and small business owners truly wear a lot of hats. They're not only working with their vendors and having relationships with their customers, but there's a lot of, forms and agencies that affect everything they do and every way that they do it, from making a little bit of food to how they remit their sales tax to the city and state. And the association, through its staff, does a nice job reviewing legislation, looking for unintended consequences, Nathan used the words reasonable regulation. I think the association is a great organization to work on behalf of all of our state businesses and retailers, whether they know it or not, whether they're a member or not. It's, I think, a heavy lift on some days anyway.
Absolutely. And that's why it's great to have that many members, so you have someone to rely on. And you touched on it with the networking. Once you get to get those connections, you always have someone that you can talk to. So that's amazing, and appreciate that. Nathan, I was kind of wondering too with you, is there any kind of legislative update since it's been a couple weeks? Is there a difference in the vibe there since you've been around, or anything that you do want to touch on that's changed, or anything we should keep an eye on?
Well, things are changing dynamically, Steve, and it really does vary from day to day. But high level, there's no consensus around what to do about property taxes yet. As I mentioned before, there were 50 bills, 50 bills that were introduced, and so anytime you have that many different ideas, it takes a long time to sort through, and we're going to be sorting through that right at the end. You probably saw in the news earlier this week, revenue estimates have been increased. Apparently, the state of South Dakota did a little better than expected in December sales tax collections, and we'll get the January numbers here as well that have been up just a little bit. And so Governor Roden had initially proposed 0% increases for what we call the big three, that'd be education, healthcare, and state employee salaries. And so he's now recommending a 1% increase, which obviously that's not as much as what some of those entities would like, but it's better than 0%. Economic development continues to be a conversation, whether that's tax increment financing or whether we should provide some incentives for data centers, or honestly, based on or related to the conversation we just had about business friendliness, a lot of things that would add new regulations to business. I mean, the House floor just yesterday passed a bill that would mandate that every single business, regardless of size, have to participate in the E-Verify program. There's a variety of different bills that would increase the burdens that business owners have to do for data collection and remission to the state. And so there's always a lot going on, but we're 21 days down, and so we've got 16 days left in the main run, and a lot of opportunity for mischief, you might say.
Definitely. And you've heard recently now, I'm not sure if those headlines, how accurate they are, but the data center specifically that you mentioned, with some of the recent passing, does that mean that potentially South Dakota won't be able to maybe entertain one, or are there maybe other incentives that they might have to work on now?
Well, the conversations are ongoing, and we certainly won't know how things shake out until probably literally the last day of the legislative session. But I guess I would say at a really high level, if South Dakota is interested in this kind of investment, having a data center, which, literally has a construction cost of hundreds of millions of dollars and adds tens of millions, I should say, of dollars in sales tax every year. If South Dakota is interested in that, it almost certainly will require some kind of incentive, because we are at a competitive disadvantage to 40 other states that provide those incentives. And so if we don't do something like that, it's almost certain that South Dakota will not see that kind of development.
All right. And Nathan, you've been doing some capital walks, and you always get out and meet different businesses. Is there some things that us businesses should be keeping an eye on that maybe you've picked up on with any recent activity over the last couple months, or projections, anything like that that's kind of out in the community?
Well, there's always things, Steve. I mean, there's tons of stuff, and I kind of touched on it before about, new requirements. One of the things that's probably going to happen for businesses that are participating in the SNAP program, we have 715 businesses that participate in SNAP, formerly known as food stamps. There's an effort in the legislature right now to remove quote unquote sugary drinks from the products that are eligible for SNAP. It seems likely that the legislature is going to do that, but exactly what those products are is not yet known, and it'll take a while, if this bill passes, to go through the federal government process process and then have the state come up with a list and that kind of thing. And so grocers, convenience stores, other folks that participate in SNAP should be aware that that is happening, but it would likely be several months before any of that would actually take place. But it will 100% require a change in the way that they go about their business.
Very good. And Jason, too, with being the president, are there some things that you have some advocacy that you're kind of working on throughout this year that you want members to kind of be aware of or anything like that?
Sure. Nathan's example was a good one. If we have to track different kinds of drinks, it's not as if you can just make a list one time and that be gospel. Many of our drink distributors will have a new flavor of Mountain Dew, it seems like every quarter, or a new energy drink. And so on behalf of the state, they've got to keep current with these things. And it just seems to be ongoing efforts and things like that. Similarly, we talked about a bill that was addressed at controlling nicotine, and they had some sales pitches that didn't seem very accurate. They said, well, stop your teenager from using tobacco and nicotine, and they failed to mention that we haven't been able to sell or wanted it to sell. We haven't sold cigarettes to people that were under 18 ever, just like you haven't sold alcohol to people who are under 21 for a long time now. Those systems are in place. We train, we do things. So we're not always looking for redundant solutions and things that the state will create. So you kind of want to remember the existing regulations in place and whether something is practical or maybe in that case seemed a little bit over the top.
Absolutely. And I know there's so many changes. We've had some guests in here talking about filing your taxes, and there's a lot to keep up with there too. So that's probably a whole nother couple hour show. But Nathan, we want to make sure I check with you too. Is there anything else that we want to check into with you on the retail side of traveling? And I know you get from side to side. We had Keisha in here last time. That was great. She stopped into Watertown, an amazing rep, and we got a couple minutes with her after. But something that we should be on the lookout for as you're out and about?
It doesn't really feel like it, but we're still in winter here, and winter's not over yet. I mean, it's supposed to be 50 degrees for the weekend in a lot of places East River. And so, hard to think that spring is coming up, but it's coming. And so I would say for consumers who are interested in the normal things that take place in the spring, be contacting those local Main Street businesses to get on the list. If you've got, yard maintenance stuff, if you've got equipment that needs upgraded, if you've got construction projects going on. Heck, I've got one staff member whose family's pouring concrete today, and we're in the middle of February. And so if you're interested in some of those kinds of things, check with your local business owner and make sure that you can get on their list early for those spring projects.
Very good. And Jason, appreciate you being on today, being the board president. It's one thing to be a member, but you always have those few that step up and be a part of the action and being part of the board too. We appreciate that. So thank you for joining us, and also thanks for joining the fight and helping the retailers and everything and like that. So thank you for coming on today. We appreciate that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Nathan, before we let you go, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we do wrap up today?
Well, I'd just like to say, one, thanks to all of our board of directors. I mean, we've got more than 24 board members from all around the state. I mean, we're talking, Sioux Falls to Lemon, the southern Black Hills, all the way up to the Northeast. And so we couldn't exist as an organization without their direction. We've been blessed with really good board presidents over the last number of years. Jason is pretty modest, but I mean, they've got an excellent family business there. He's a really thoughtful leader, and we certainly appreciate having him be our board president for this year.
Awesome. And I think we have our very own Lisa Converse in town that's on the board as well. So we'll see if we can sneak her in here and get a little inside info too.
Absolutely. She's a brand new member of the board, and I think she's going to be excellent.
Awesome. Well, very cool. Well, if you want more information, make sure you check out SDRA.org. Also, you have to follow South Dakota Retailers Association online on Facebook. They post a lot of different business information. Nathan's walking around with a cup of coffee and visiting with people and getting to know them a little bit, as well as a lot of the other reps. So check that out. And Nathan, the executive director, thank you for joining us again. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Appreciate everything that you do. And thank you for joining us again this week.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep, you bet. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And that'll do it for this week's We Believe in Business. And we'll see these guys here in a couple of weeks.